The speaker of the day is Dr. Shrija Sugunan, did a DCH and MD from Trivandrum Medical College. Then he did a fellowship in critical care from Apollo Hospital, Chennai. And he was working in Trivandrum. He is working in Trivandrum Medical College, senior resident, assistant professor, and associate professor. Now he is the associate professor of pediatrics, and she is in charge of critical care in SAT Trivandrum Medical College. And she's is a speaker, common speaker in most of the IAP programs. And also, she is very much interested in immunization. She has written a book on immunization also. And she has written chapters in various books. And also, she has got a lot of publications to her credit. We are very happy that you have accepted our invitation and come over here. So I have great pleasure to welcome Dr. Shrija Sugunan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Sukumaran sir, for those very kind words. So with that, I think I'll just straight away go to the presentation. So coming to the presentation, that is the COVID vaccines, what I plan to cover in the next half an hour would be a bit of viral replication, vaccine immunology, and vaccine platforms. It's important for us to know these three things. Only then we will understand what exactly is vaccine efficacy, what are the limitations of the vaccine, and scientifically answer the vaccine FAQs. So let us see how the virus enters our body. We all know that the virus enters our body through the ACE receptors, and once it is inside the cell, its genetic material is extruded into the cytoplasm, where the ribosomes read the RNA and start producing viral proteins. These viral proteins are reassembled to form a virus, and that comes out of the cell. Now, when the reassembled virus comes out of the cell, it goes and infects another cell, or it remains otherwise, and then it is recognized by the antigen presenting cell, which engulf it, process it, and express it on its surface. Once the antigen presenting cells expresses the viral protein on its surface, it is recognized by the B cells and the T cells. The B cells, with the help of helper cells, get converted to plasma cells and start producing a lot of antibodies. While the cytotoxic T cells that are formed, they go and bind to the viral infected cells and causes cell lysis. Now, what happens when the B cells encounter the virus the next time? When it encounters the virus the next time, it starts producing a lot of antibodies. These antibodies go and bind to the virus and either kill them if it is a neutralizing antibody, or block them to making it unable to attach to a new cell. So from this, what did we understand? We understood that virus needs host cells protein forming machinery to multiply. Antibodies take time to develop. The virus is neutralized or blocked by antibody. T lymphocyte cause infected cell death. So we understood that the virus needs the host cells protein forming machinery to multiply. Now, having said that, what happens to the B cells after that? After some time, the plasma B cells subsequently die. So the antibody level after an infection initially rises and subsequently falls. So if your antibody levels fall below the protective level, the chance of reinfection is there, unless the memory cells are formed and cell-mediated immunity is robust. Otherwise, you do not have a long-lasting immunity. Now, having said that, let us move on to the COVID vaccines. So before we see which are the vaccines which have hit the target and the vaccines which have not hit the target, the first question that came to the mind when the COVID vaccines came in the market was, how so fast? Was safety compromised? So that's a very important question, because we know that after 73 years, Zika, still now we do not have a vaccine. For AIDS, after 39 years, the vaccine studies are still on. The earlier time we had, the fastest a vaccine was formed was against the mumps vaccine, which took 4 years. And here within 11 months, you are having a vaccine. So how does that happen? Usually it takes 10 to 15 years to produce a vaccine, because it goes through various stages and it is a sequential process. First exploratory, then preclinical, then clinical, then the approval, then manufacturing, and then finally coming to the public. So what happened here, that different phases of vaccine development were compressed and many of them were running simultaneously. That means while the preclinical study was going on, the phase 1 trial was already on. the government was putting in the money, the manufacturing units were already set up, and all these things led to the vaccine coming out so fast, because in December we had the virus, in January we had the genetic sequence, in March people were already talking about vaccines. So that is how the vaccine had come so early. So now what are the different vaccine platforms? The traditional vaccine platforms are definitely the live attenuated vaccine, where the vaccine virus is attenuated so that the virus can enter your body, can cause an infection, but cannot cause a disease, but it makes your immune system respond to it. At present, there are no live attenuated vaccines in phase 3 trial, because this is a long, cumbersome process. You need to make the virus pass through multiple subcultures to really attenuate it. Killed vaccine, the whole virion is taken, killed, and used as a vaccine. So here we have killed vaccine, our own Covaxin, and there are 3 Chinese vaccines also, where you're using a killed vaccine for corona. Then subunit vaccine, an interesting vaccine now, because we have the Novavax, which is currently in the phase 3 trial. Here what they have done is the the genome that codes for the spike protein is taken and introduced into baculovirus. In the baculovirus, and then the baculovirus is allowed to infect the moth cell. Inside the moth cell, the DNA is converted to RNA and it starts producing spike proteins. These spike proteins are expressed on the surface of the moth cell. These spike proteins are harvested and then they are made into nanoparticles. Then they are mixed with adjuvant. So that is important, because this is a protein, you are having a subunit vaccine, so it needs an adjuvant and only then it becomes efficacious. So this M protein has been found to be very efficacious. And what we have found here is that, what is the advantages? It is a known platform with a very good safety record. The advantage of the subunit vaccine is that it's a known platform with a good safety record, but it requires an adjuvant. Why I said it is interesting is that the initial trials are showing that it is causing a 4-fold higher antibody titer than what is seen in the convalescent plasma. At present, this vaccine is under trial in UK, USA, and Mexico. But till the efficacy trials come out, we cannot really vouch for the vaccine yet. So this is right now in the pipeline, not yet come out in the market. So from there, so now we go on to the, it's not moving. Okay, so now coming to the next new generation vaccines, that is the nucleic acid vaccines. You have the mRNA vaccine, the DNA vaccine, and the viral vector vaccine. Now, what exactly is this mRNA vaccine? In fact, your SARS-CoV-2 has many different proteins. Out of that, what interested the scientists the most was the spike protein on the surface of the virus, because it is with the help of these spike protein that the virus goes and attaches to the ACE receptors. So what did they do was, they took the genome that codes for the spike protein, and that RNA was packaged into lipid nanoparticles. The reason for that is because RNA is highly labile. So to make it more stable, they have packaged it into lipid nanoparticle, and that's the exact reason why the mRNA vaccines require stringent temperature control, because of its stability. And once this mRNA vaccine is introduced into the body, the mRNA goes into the cell cytoplasm, where it is taken up, read by the ribosomes, and the ribosomes start producing the viral protein. This time, it does not produce the whole of the viral protein, it only produces the spike proteins. Now, this spike proteins would be taken up by the antigen-presenting cells, processed and expressed on its surface, leading on to stimulation of B cells and T cells, giving us both cell-mediated and humoral immunity. Now, we should understand that when we're talking about the mRNA vaccine, it is the first 3 steps that makes the vaccine different. The rest 3 steps are common to any vaccine that we come across. So here, what you're exactly doing is, your body itself is producing the antigen, and the further steps are just like any other vaccine. So now the question is, can it cause mutation in the host cell? We need to understand that when you're giving an mRNA vaccine, it just goes to the cell cytoplasm, and it is the ribosomes are sitting in the cytoplasm. Your RNA is not going to go inside the nucleus where your genome is. So an RNA vaccine cannot cause a DNA mutation, because it never enters the cell nucleus. Can it cause a disease? It definitely cannot cause a disease, because as we know, the genomic material is not coding for the whole of the virus. It is coding only for the spike protein. So it can neither cause a disease nor it can cause a host mutation. Now coming to the next vaccine, that is the vector vaccine. So here what they have done, they have taken the spike protein RNA and made it into a DNA. And meanwhile, an adenovirus vector, its vector is genetically modified. That means the adenovirus is incapable of multiplication. It is a non-replicating adenovirus. And the DNA of the spike protein is introduced into the viral gene. So now when this vaccine is administered into the body, the adenovirus enters the cell. Inside the cell, it reaches the nucleus and it releases the genetic material inside the nucleus. In the nucleus, the DNA is converted to the RNA, and the RNA comes out into the cell cytoplasm. Again, now it goes to the ribosomes. The ribosome read it and starts synthesizing spike protein. And the rest of the steps are same. The spike protein are taken up by the antigen presenting cells, and your B cells and T cells get stimulated. So now the question is regarding the vector vaccine is that it is more stable. So no stringent temperature requirement is there. And it has got a high expression of antigen. So usually it causes a very good antibody response. But antibody to vector may affect the vaccine efficacy. Similarly, when you give the same vector the second time, the efficacy may come down. Another question that comes here is that, can this be taken as a live attenuated viral vaccine? No, it cannot be taken as a live attenuated viral vaccine because it does not contain the coronavirus at all. So it is not a live attenuated corona vaccine. Is it a live attenuated adeno vaccine then? No, because the adeno vector cannot multiply. It is dying off very soon. So only if it multiplies, attenuated strains can multiply in your body. Only after they multiply, they produce a robust immune response. So that is why it cannot be taken as a live attenuated vaccine. And that's the exact reason why vector vaccines are recommended for patients who are immunosuppressed. So now coming to what to do with these issues. So Sputnik V vaccine from the Gemelli, Russia has come out with a new technology. What they have done is that for the first and the second dose, they have used two different vectors, AD26 and AD5. And what they showed that when they are using two different vectors to deliver the two different doses, the antibody titer is higher than when they are using the same vector for the first and second dose. But the important thing for us to note is that if you're going to take only one dose, your vaccine antibody titer is going to come down over time and you will be left unprotected. So it is important to have two doses. And what the Sputnik V says that using different vectors may be beneficial than using the same vector. So now let us see the head-to-head comparison between the Sputnik V vaccine and the Covishield. Sputnik V vaccine, the problem is the vector they are using is human adenovirus. That as we said, there are two, adeno5 and adeno26, but their pre-existing antibody to the human adenovirus may decrease the efficacy of the vaccine. The presence of pre-existing antibodies is dependent upon the geographical location, the country we are talking about. So somewhere it is only 10%, other countries it may be 70%. So the problem is, unless we study the vaccine in different countries, we will not be able to say the efficacy of the vaccine in that environment. And thankfully, this vaccine is presently under study in India. It has shown an efficacy of 91% in Russia. Regarding Covishield, it is using the same vector for the first and second dose, but since it uses a chimpanzee adenovirus, a pre-existing antibody occurrence, the chance is very rare, but it has shown an efficacy of 70%. Now, DNA vaccines, can it alter the genome? That question comes because last time we said that RNA vaccine cannot alter the genome, but here now we are telling that the DNA DNA vaccine goes to the cell nucleus. So once it goes to the cell nucleus, can it alter? The risk is negligible. The reason why I say the risk is negligible is we get infected by many DNA viruses in our lifetime, like adenovirus, herpes virus. If these completely virulent viruses are not altering our genome, why should an attenuated virus, which non-replicating virus, alter our genome? So the risk appears negligible to nil right now. Now coming to the different vaccines that we have. So coming to the two RNA vaccines, the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine, both have released their preliminary phase 3 trial data, which has included more than 30,000 subjects, and they have included patients more than 18 years in case of Moderna vaccine and more than 16 years in case of Pfizer vaccine. And the vaccine efficacy for Moderna was 94% and for Pfizer was 95%. So they found in case of Moderna, they found 11 cases happened in the vaccinated group. Comparing to the Pfizer vaccine, 162 happened in the placebo group and 8 happened in the vaccinated group. Now, regarding the Sputnik and the Covishield, we already said, so the Sputnik has a vaccine efficacy of 91% and Covishield has a vaccine efficacy of 70%. But even though the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine had included patients with comorbidities, patients with HIV and immunosuppression, usually the data is very little for the other two vaccines. But what is interesting to note that all the vaccines have almost near 100% efficacy against severe COVID infection. So that is a very reassuring thing. We'll discuss a little bit more about the chimp adenovirus or the Covishield or the Oxford or AstraZeneca, whatever you call, because that's the vaccine that we are going to receive from tomorrow. So what we know that initial studies, that overall efficacy was 70%, but these studies were done in UK, Brazil. What they found that in a subgroup of population, by error, instead of the first dose as full dose, half dose was given. That is, a low dose was given, and the second dose was full dose. But surprisingly, the group of patients who received the first dose as half dose showed a vaccine for both doses, showed a vaccine efficacy of only 62%. Combined together, we say it's 70%. So why is that the low dose caused a higher vaccine efficacy? The exact reason is not known, but it is believed that it may be due to the larger first dose higher anti-vaccine antibody. That means when you're giving a larger dose, the anti-vector antibody is higher. So when you give the vaccine the second time, probably the vector was not allowed to enter into your cell. So that may be one postulation. Another postulation is that it may be because the smaller first dose produces memory cells, which leads to a better antibody response the next time. Whatever be the reason, the low dose, standard dose combinations is supposed to be better. But right now, what is recommended for us to receive are 2 standard doses itself, because low dose was an error. It was not part of the trial question. So what the vaccine is licensed for in use, whether in UK or in India, it is 2 standard doses itself. Now coming to the COVID antibody titers following Covishield antibody titers, as you can see here, after you receive the vaccine, remember for the first 2 weeks, none of us are going to be protected, because that is the time your vaccine is going to take to stimulate the B cells and T cells and produce the antibody. It is only after that you start having a protected antibody level. Even after that, a single dose is going to give you only 52% efficacy. That means half of us will be protected, half of us will not be protected. After you take the second dose, 70% will be protected. So it is important to, we should know that the second dose is important. Now coming to the when to take the second dose. Right now, the second dose is recommended to be taken at 4 weeks interval, because we are looking at vaccinating, because it's a pandemic, maximum people as early as possible. But we also need to know that the efficacy at 6 weeks is only 53%, while the efficacy of interval, when the interval is longer, that is 12 weeks, the efficacy is 79%. Similarly, the antibody titer at 6 weeks. So what we understood is that increasing the interval between the 2 doses increases the vaccine efficacy as well as the antibody titers. Now coming to the side effects: local site pain, fatigue, headache, fever, myalgia, arthralgia, nausea, chills, they are supposed to be quite common side effects. Now, remember, most adverse events occur during the first 48 hours. Onset or persistence of fever after 48 hours should be evaluated for alternate cause. Very rarely you can have local and systemic side effects persisting for 7 days. Now, if you are allergic to any of these are the constituents of the Covishield vaccine, that is histidine, magnesium chloride, polysorbate, ethanol, sucrose, and disodium EDTA. If you are allergic to any of these, the vaccine should not be taken. What about elderly and immunocompromised? These are the people who badly need the vaccine, so the vaccine is definitely recommended for them. Definitely, the efficacy may be slightly less, but they are the high-risk population and the vaccine is safe and they should be offered. What about pregnancy and lactation? None of the studies have included pregnant ladies and breastfeeding ladies, but they are following up patients who have subsequently become pregnant or who were inadvertently pregnant at that time. So right now, the vaccine is not routinely recommended in pregnancy and lactation, but the CDC says that if the person is pregnant as well as high risk, either due to a pre-existing disease or because of being a healthcare worker, if they want to take the vaccine, knowing the limitations, they can take the vaccine. But the vaccine is also associated with fever, and fever itself is a risk factor for adverse pregnancy outcome. So if they are taking the vaccine, they need to take paracetamol along with it. But coming to the Indian government stand, right now, pregnancy and breastfeeding is a contraindication to receive the Covishield vaccine. What about children? It has not been studied. All vaccines are 16 to 18 years above. So it is currently not studied and not recommended in children. So the contraindications, according to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, is pregnancy, lactation, history of anaphylaxis to the first dose of the vaccine, and history of any anaphylaxis to any drug or food. So this is a new addition. In fact, it is not the MOH recommendation. The UK government has also added on this previous history of any form of life-threatening anaphylaxis as a contraindication to take the vaccine, just as a precaution, because the vaccine is in the very initial stage of supply and delivery. So now coming to our own vaccine, the Covaxin, which has been in the news for all the right and wrong reasons. The reason why there was such a hue and cry about the vaccine is because the phase 3 trial is not over. So what is a phase 3 trial? In a phase 1 trial, less than 100 volunteers are given the vaccine. The main aim to see if the vaccine is safe, what is the dose that you can give, is it producing an immune response? So safety is more here, and finding the dose is given more importance. Then comes the phase 2 trials, where you are going to give to less than 1,000 volunteers. And here again, you're looking at the short-term side effects. You're looking whether they are seroconverting, but you cannot say anything about the efficacy because there is no placebo control group. You're just looking at a group of patients, you're giving the vaccine and looking how the patients are responding to it. It's only in phase 3 trial, you have a randomized placebo control trial, and the thousands of volunteers are used here. Only a phase 3 trial can really tell you about both the safety and efficacy, because it's given to a larger population. You will know the efficacy better, and also the safety will be better understood when it is given to a larger population. So that is exactly what our Covaxin is lacking, because phase 3 trial reports are not yet over. So, but still, there are certain things that we need to know regarding safety. It is a killed vaccine, so serious side effects are unlikely. So as far as safety is considered, we don't have to be scared about Covaxin. Efficacy, as I said, we do not know. But do we have any other similar vaccine, and can we extrapolate the efficacy of the other killed vaccines to Covaxin? Yes, we do have killed vaccine, and all the 3 killed vaccines currently in the market is from China. So let us see how they have fared. So these are data from Turkey, Brazil, UAE, and China. The vaccines have shown an efficacy between 78% to 91%. But the problem here is that these data are not yet in the public domain for peer review and analysis. So this is what the manufacturer has put out. But so that limitation of data accessibility is still there. And unfortunately, just a couple of days back, Brazil has revised the vaccine efficacy from 78% to 50.4%. So that is the bare minimum WHO cutoff. So, but the good thing is UAE, they are telling they are getting 86% vaccine efficacy. So we can say that the killed vaccines currently in the market seem to be having a range of efficacy between 50% to 91%. But what is good again here is that the severe cases are almost 100% protected. So that is a welcome thing. Now, looking at the approved vaccines at a glance. So we know that mRNA vaccines have been approved for use in most of the European countries. Saudi Arabia has also approved the Pfizer vaccine. Regarding the Covishield and the Sputnik vaccine, Covishield is also being given permission in multiple countries, including India. Sputnik is at present advised to be given only in Russia. And regarding the killed vaccines, the Sinopharm vaccine is being used in UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt, apart from China. And Covaxin, now we know that Indian government has given the permission for it. So that is at a glance of the 9 vaccines which are currently in the market, which are currently given authorization by various national authorities. Now, what did we understand from the nutshell? All vaccines appear reasonably effective. say 70 to 95 for most vaccines. You can take it as 50 to 95 also. But definitely the good thing is that efficacy against severe disease is almost 100% for all vaccines. Now coming to some of the questions that came to, that was an FAQ for us. We had this in the media a couple of months back that COVID-19 volunteers developed Bell's palsy, both following Pfizer vaccine as well as the Moderna vaccine, and the trial was temporarily suspended. What happened to it? Subsequent analysis revealed that the incidence was not more than what is expected in the general population. So it was not considered as a vaccine side effect, but it was considered as a coincident problem. Then coming to 2 people with history of COVID infection need vaccination. We need to understand that, and as we already said, antibody titers tend to decrease over time. And once the antibody titers decrease, you become susceptible to a reinfection. But most of the recent studies have shown that after a COVID infection, at least for the first 3 months, you are definitely protected against having an infection. So what about getting vaccinated for this population? What you see here is that it is very good to note that if you had a prior COVID infection, your baseline antibody titer is high. And even after a single dose, your antibody titer goes much above what is seen in a person who never had a COVID infection. So what we have to understand is that for those who had a COVID infection, in fact, the vaccine is showing more efficacy than those who did not have a COVID infection because the antibody titers are much higher. So when do you want to get vaccinated? The Ministry of Health, the newest guideline says that 1 to 2 months after an acute COVID infection, you get vaccinated. CDC recommends to take the vaccine 3 months later. So either way, it is okay, because as we saw that the vaccine is immunogenic in spite of having pre-existing antibodies. So now coming to, can we do away with the mask? Because something that has been using and we all are fed up of doing it. But remember that vaccines are unlikely to produce sterilizing immunity. Asymptomatic infection and transmission can occur. We need to continue with mask and social distancing. That is mainly because in the preclinical studies, they had found that when you're taken the vaccine, the virus is able to multiply in the nasal. In the nose, it is able to multiply, but it does not invade the lower respiratory tract. That means even when you're protected against the disease, you can still act as a person who is infected and transmits the disease. So it does not cause a sterilizing immunity. In order to spread the infection in the community, we need to continue with mask as well as social distancing. Now, can vaccination lead to a worse SARS-CoV-2 infection? This question came because of the dengue virus. Once we started the dengue vaccination, we realized that those who received the dengue vaccine and then they had a subsequent infection, they were having a worse dengue infection. This is called as antibody-dependent enhancement. Usually, antibodies block the entry of virus inside the cell, but sometimes what happens is that antibody binds to the receptors as well as to the virus, facilitating the entry into the cell. So this is called as antibody-dependent enhancement. It is at present, thankfully, not reported from the COVID vaccine. Usually it is seen when the antibodies are of the weaker nature. So we don't have any data or any reports of antibody-dependent enhancement as far as COVID vaccine is considered. Now coming to the hottest news, that is the SARS-CoV-2 mutations, which has made us all worried. So now we are worried that whether the virus is going to again roam around freely as it has been done, that mutations have affected the spike protein genome, and most of our vaccine is targeting the spike protein. It has rendered the virus more infectious because this mutation, N501Y mutation, helps the virus to attach to the receptor better. That means if the virus enters your body, you getting an infection chances more. And meanwhile, the South African mutation has made the virus less recognizable to certain antibodies. Now, what does that mean in practical sense? It means that what we need to understand is that vaccine does not target just one epitope. It targets more than one epitope. So even if there is a mutation in a spike protein genome, a part of it, the other part, it can still produce antibody. And what is good, as Pfizer has done experiments in the lab, and it has proven efficacy against 16 mutations in the coronavirus, which includes the UK mutation. But unfortunately, they have not yet studied the African mutation, and whether the Pfizer vaccine will continue to be effective against the African mutation is not yet known. So as far as the UK mutant strain is considered, the vaccines seem to be effective. But what is the good news is that even if there are multiple mutations and the vaccines become ineffective, the RNA can be tweaked to produce a new vaccine in 6 weeks' time. So even if the virus becomes smarter, we can become smarter and create a new vaccine in 6 weeks' time. So now, can we interchange vaccine brands? The question comes because many of our expatriates, they may be in the UAE taking the Sinopharm vaccine and then coming to India and they want to know whether they can take Covishield vaccine. And sometimes you are in a position where you need to take more than one vaccine. For example, you are on an anti-rabies vaccine prophylaxis, and then your Covishield vaccine also takes, you have been called for the Covishield vaccine the same day. The answer to the both questions are no. You cannot interchange vaccine brands because there are no studies. So we really don't know when you're using a different brand, whether the vaccine will show efficacy or not. So we cannot do that. And right now, the Covishield vaccine as well as the Sputnik vaccine are undergoing trials to see that whether both the doses, when they are using different vaccine, the efficacy is better or not. But definitely that does not apply to the other vaccines or either to the Covishield and Sputnik vaccine. So we should not be interchanging brands. Same vaccine has to be taken for the second dose. When can we receive any other vaccine on the same day? No, because again, you do not know anything about the interference between a vector vaccine and the other vaccines. So if you need to take a different vaccine, the interval should be at least 14 days. So multiple vaccines should not be taken on the same day. So with that, the take-home messages are that all current vaccines look promising, especially against the severe disease, but long-term side effects as well as duration of protection is unknown. Vaccine development platforms appear safe, but it is important to remember that one dose of vaccine efficacy is less. You need to take both the doses. So with that, this is what the corona has been doing for the last couple of months. We hope that with the vaccine, we will be able to fight back. Thank you.
Can you please unshare the slides? Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Shrija, for an excellent presentation of this topic. And now she has gone through the different types of vaccine, the efficacy of the vaccine, main side effects of the vaccine, and she has almost covered everything. And now the topic is open for discussion. You can ask questions or can have comments now. Dr. Shrija, now the Johnson & Johnson is coming up with a single dose vaccine. Single dose vaccine.
But sir, Pfizer vaccine is now recommending a third dose. So whether they say single dose or 2 doses, only time will say whether the antibody titers are really lasting long. So the number of doses are still a question mark. No question.
Any questions, doubts? You can ask now. You can unmute and ask.
Third dose എടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ കുറച്ചുകൂടി നന്നായിരിക്കും തോന്നുന്നു. തേർഡ് ഡോസ് കൂടെ എടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ നന്നായിരിക്കും തോന്നുന്നു.
അതെ sir, it looks like that, പക്ഷെ recommendation ആയിട്ട് വന്നിട്ടില്ല. Probably it will come definitely. കാരണം these vaccines are not exactly live attenuated vaccines. So usually 016 എന്നുള്ള ഒരു കൺസെപ്റ്റിലോട്ടായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ ഫൈനലി മൂവ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. We do not know right now. And yeah, the question is longer interval between 2 doses is better than why 4 weeks. I said longer interval is definitely better. So the government prefers to take it at 4 weeks so that they can say, or they can see that more number of people are vaccinated. Our vaccination group, it is taken as a valid interval, and beyond 12 weeks, what is recommended is revaccination. So don't go beyond 12 weeks. You can take it anywhere between 4 weeks to 12 weeks.
ഏജ് above 75 years എന്തെങ്കിലും ദോഷങ്ങളുണ്ടോ?
ഇല്ല സാറേ, ഏജ് അബവ് 75 ഇയേഴ്സ് നാച്ചുറലി ഇമ്യൂണോ സെനസൻസ് ഒക്കെ വരുന്നത് കാരണം വാക്സിൻ എഫിക്കസിയുടെ ചാൻസ് കുറവാണ്. പക്ഷേ സൈഡ് എഫക്ട് ചാൻസ് ചിലപ്പോൾ ചെറിയതായിട്ട് കുറവായിരിക്കും. ബട്ട് മോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ദ സ്റ്റഡീസ് ഹാവ് ഷോൺ ദാറ്റ് എൽഡർലി ഈസ് റെസ്പോണ്ടിങ് വെൽ. ദ എഫിക്കസി ലുക്സ് ഓക്കെ ഈവൻ വെൻ ദ ആന്റിബോഡി ടൈറ്റേഴ്സ് ആർ സ്ലൈറ്റ്ലി ലെസ്. So definitely can go ahead and take the vaccine. No problem with that.
Dr. Shrija, there's a question in the chat box. I had a positive skin test to midazolam. Can I take the vaccine?
No, skin test to midazolam, which is not of non-anaphylactic reaction, of course you can take the vaccine. If you had a previous anaphylaxis, that is what stops us from taking the vaccine. It's just a precautionary. നമ്മൾ സാധാരണ അത്ര ഒരു ബ്രോഡർ കവറേജ് പറയാറില്ല. നമ്മൾ എപ്പോഴും പറയുന്നത് പ്രീവിയസ് ആ വാക്സിൻ കോൺസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂവന്റ് അനാഫിലാക്സിസ് വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ മാത്രമേ എടുക്കേണ്ട എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. UK-യിൽ 2 individuals who were having a history of anaphylaxis developed anaphylaxis to the Covishield vaccine, and that is how the government came out with the new guideline that anybody with a life-threatening anaphylaxis history should not take the vaccine.
Madam, is there any immediate effect for this vaccine? Immediate effect?
Immediate side effect ആയിരിക്കും അല്ലേ സാറേ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചത്?
Then I mean like
side effect. Immediate side effect definitely usual local and systemic side effects, fever, myalgia, arthralgia, fatigue. ചിലർക്കൊന്നും ഇല്ല എന്ന് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്, ചിലർക്ക് അതുണ്ടെന്ന് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. But still it's a significant population. Around 60% are telling about some form of milder side effects. Then revaccination means to give again from the first dose. Yes, the answer is revaccination means to give again from the first dose, but we should understand that since the target is to cover more people, we will not get the revaccination, because right now you are going to get an SMS telling you that it's time for you to vaccinate, and you're given a slot to get vaccinated. So it's better to get vaccinated at the time, because അടുത്ത slot കിട്ടുമ്പോഴല്ലേ നമുക്ക് പോകാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ.
See, there's another question. What about vaccination and attaining herd immunity? Herd immunity with the vaccine.
Now that is a very tricky question, because we need to, as I already said, it's only time. Vaccine efficacy and vaccine effectiveness are two different things. Efficacy means you're doing in a controlled environment and you're seeing whether they are getting the infection or not. When the vaccine is rolled out into the public, you will know the vaccine effectiveness. It is where if you have a herd effect, even vaccinating part of the population may give protection to the others. If you don't have a herd effect, it will not show. If you are having problem with vaccine administration and vaccine storage, the effectiveness may be lesser than what the efficacy says. The effectiveness in the population is a different story. Regarding the herd effect, it's too early to say. If what we know from the preclinical studies that it is not going to prevent the vaccine virus multiplication in the nose, then it will not show a herd effect. If it prevents vaccine multiplication in our body as well as disease, only then it will show a herd effect. എല്ലാ വാക്സിനേഷനും ഹേർഡ് എഫക്റ്റ് കാണിക്കില്ല. ഇപ്പൊ ഹേർഡ് എഫക്റ്റ് വരും 100% പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല.
Dr. Shrija, in the last talk by Dr. Jacob John again in Trivandrum, and he was again telling that there is no herd effect. He said we are taking the vaccine for individual protection.
It's an important thing. Don't really expect that our neighbor will take the vaccine and we'll get the protection.
And as you said correctly, the vaccine will protect 100%, 100% efficacy against severe forms of COVID. So I think it is high time that all people should take vaccination. So 100% protection against severe forms. That is very important. Then few more questions are there.
ഒരു question കൂടി ചോദിക്കട്ടെ. Suppose you are given a choice, which will you take, madam?
Okay, whether I will take Covishield or Covaxin, because Covaxin studies are not out, I would go for Covishield. And especially because the killed vaccine, other places, it is not sure about it. So really nothing to say. കാരണം ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ Covishield എടുത്താലും the efficacy range is very 60% to
Questions. Any other neurological adverse effects like Guillain-Barré syndrome or transverse myelopathy?
In fact, GBS has not been reported. There is one case of transverse myelitis has been population. Only then we would know that whether this is a causal relationship or just a coincidental relationship. So one case has been reported. Usually neurological side effects are seen with vaccines which mimic, like molecular mimicry, that is which contain nerve tissue, these things, or viruses which are live, you have that. But here also we cannot say it will not happen. Time will only say it has neurological side effects. One case has been reported.
Another question is it necessary or possible to check neutralizing antibody level in COVID positive patients before vaccination? Is it required?
It is not required. You can check that, as I showed you, in fact, slide that even when your baseline antibody titers are 7,000, you are going above 1 lakh post-vaccination. That is mainly because the vaccine is being given as a vector vaccine. So vector antibody illa. The genetic material can easily enter your cell cytoplasm and secrete the antigen and cause a good antibody response. So pre-existing antibodies seems not to interfere with the present vaccine efficacy. So that is why there is no need to check your antibody titers before you're taking the vaccine. And even when you're checking the antibody titers, it does not mean that having a good antibody titer protects you against the disease, because there are different types of antibodies. Some may be a neutralizing antibody, some may be blocking antibodies, some may be just antibodies which neither block nor neutralize. So that problem is there. But right now what we are measuring is mainly the anti-spike protein antibodies.
Then another question is it contraindicated in a person who had developed angioneurotic edema following insect bite? Person has developed angioneurotic edema following insect bite.
If it was an angioneurotic edema that led to a BP fall, that is means you
That means anaphylaxis.
Anaphylaxis, then definitely you have to wait for the time being. Whenever we launch a vaccine, we always try to see that the vaccine is not blamed for any kind of side effects. So that is why we always put the net a little more wider. That is the reason why we try to avoid these things.
14 days കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് എടുക്കാമല്ലോ അനഫിലാക്റ്റിക് റിയാക്ഷൻ കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട്.
ഇല്ല സാർ, 14 days കഴിഞ്ഞാലും പ്രീവിയസ് ഹിസ്റ്ററി ഓഫ് അനാഫിലാക്സിസ് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എടുക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. 14 days കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് നമ്മൾ വേറൊരു വാക്സിൻ എടുത്തിട്ട് ഈ വാക്സിൻ എടുക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയുള്ള ഇന്റർവെൽ ആണ് 14 days.
One more question, madam. ഇത് ചോദിക്കാൻ പാടുണ്ടോന്ന് അറിയില്ല.
എല്ലാം ചോദിക്കാം.
അല്ല, ഫ്രാങ്ക് ആയിട്ട് ചോദിക്കുന്നതാണ്. നമുക്ക് പല ഡൗട്ടുകൾ വരുന്നുണ്ടോ. Are we going to be guinea pigs as far as this vaccine is concerned?
As far as the COVID vaccines are concerned, നമ്മുടെ phase 3 trials are also interim reports. So you have option whether you want to get the disease and be a guinea pig for the disease, or whether you want to take the vaccine and be a guinea pig for the vaccine. I would prefer to be one for the vaccine.
Okay, madam.
Personal choice.
Madam, ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ. സ്ട്രോങ് സസ്പെക്ട് ആണെങ്കിൽ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുണ്ടോ?
കോവിഡ് സസ്പെക്ട് ആയിട്ട് ഒരാള് വാക്സിൻ എടുക്കുന്നതിൽ പ്രശ്നം ഉണ്ടോ എന്നാണ് ചോദ്യം അല്ലേ. അപ്പം ബേസിക്കലി ഇഫ് യു ആർ സിംറ്റമാറ്റിക്, ലൈക്ക് ഇഫ് യു ആർ ഹാവിംഗ് ഫീവർ, ദെൻ ഡെഫിനറ്റ്ലി നമ്മൾ സിവിയർ ഫീവർ, ഹൈ ഫീവർ വരുന്ന ഏത് കണ്ടീഷനിലും you won't take any vaccine during a significant illness. So that is applicable for COVID also. So at the time of vaccination, if you are having an infection, it's better to avoid the vaccine. But whether it harm you, no, it wouldn't harm you. Because you are after, as I said, that the vector is non-replicating and it does not contain a virus. So it is not going to harm you either way. So harm verilla, benefit verunnu parayan pattathilla. പിന്നെ ഫീവർ ഉള്ള സമയത്ത് ഡെഫിനറ്റ്ലി വാക്സിനേഷൻ ഇസ് നോട്ട് റെക്കമെൻഡഡ്.
ഓക്കേ മാഡം, ഓക്കേ, താങ്ക് യു.
Okay, thank you, Shija. I think we will wind up the session. There are no further questions. We will wind up the session. Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. And the carry home message is that from tomorrow onwards, I think all healthcare workers would go and should have vaccination against COVID. Because it is sure that this vaccination will prevent 100% cases of severe acute COVID infection, COVID-19. So I request all of you to have this vaccination. Thank you, Shija. Thank you very much.